Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 341, and today we're going to be doing battle in a Ruthless Rumble. And so, if you're one of those folks that likes to just skip ahead straight to the gameplay, today we're going to be playing Aatrox Vayne, we're going to be playing Scouts, and we're going to be playing Jax Ornn. If you want to stick around for just a little bit, we'll talk about our lineup choice a little bit more, and we'll talk about some of the intricacies of these decks. If you're wanting more in-depth guides on each of these decks, we're not going to cover that off here, but you can scroll backwards through the channel, and we've covered off on all of these decks at some point. And so, the big thing to say about the Ruthless Rumble now, this next week of gauntlets that are all best of 3, and then the Runeterra Open in just under a week, is that the meta is going to be heavily shaped by the Mastering Runeterra event that just happened. Mastering Runeterra always does a event the week before. They have a nice 2K open event, and that usually shapes up the meta, especially in terms of if you don't know what you want to play and you just go and Google search good best of 3 decks Legends of Runeterra, that's going to be the first article that pops up. And then if you're looking to really adapt to the meta and change and use that piece of knowledge to your favor, the people are going to be using those archetype lists to kind of mold their counter lineups. And so you can pull that up real quick if you want. I've gone to the Mastering Runeterra Discord. I looked in at least as of today recording it, the deck lists weren't posted on the main site, but you can go to the Discord and get this Google Doc. I'll also post the Google Doc down in the comments if you'd like to attach it that way. But very powerful top 8 that made it through here. I think the Tank Buster, Grandpa Roji, and Majin Bay have all participated in Worlds. Infinity Patrons, we talk about quite a bit on this channel with a lot of his deck lists. I know he's hit rank 1 at some point. I'm pretty sure Trickster Sari is a writer over at Mastering Runeterra, and I'm somewhat familiar with K Felt, another very powerful player. And so, no hates to Ben Geo, Ukulele, and Lando My Love. That's what happens when you see like an FTP bust jump into one of these top 8. You say, who the fuck's that guy competing with these other folks I've all heard of? But everyone has their origin story, right? So hopefully this is a bright start to their futures. But if you're looking, to kind of scroll through the deck lists here real quick, you're going to see tons of lineups containing Samira, Fizz, and Jinx Kennen. We kind of touched on that quite heavily over the course of the past few videos. And then the idea of what is your third deck going to be, that's kind of the wild card in terms of what you're going to be seeing. And so, to kind of talk about this just a little bit more, I think that this format, as we come up to the next week, is going to really kind of break down into 3 things. I think that as we've said across the course of the view videos, this is a place where we're in a really good spot to just be playing a good decks lineup. I don't think you want to be going too crazy with your lineups and playing stuff like Nasus, just because the matchups are super polarized, and the amount of time you're going to find the matchups you want don't really line up to that excessive win rate you get in those matches. And so that's why I recommend just kind of playing good decks in this meta. But I think that this is going to be a 3-3-3 meta, if you will, or a 33%, 33%, 33%, if you will. Those of you that are better at your mathematics can really kind of bring that out. But what I think we're going to see in that first third is that just random decks kind of lineup. That person that's like, oh wow, I really love playing Talia Malphite, I'm going to bring that to the event. Or you say, hey, I'm a Zed main in the League of Legends, I'm going to play Zed in this silly card game that the people like. I think it's very understandable that you can jump in and then have a kind of off-meta lineup, if you will. I think you'll run into this about a third of the time. The other third that I think you're going to see next is going to be this Samira Fizz plus Jinx Kennen style lineup. This is very similar to what we've been doing over the course of the past few days. You say to yourself, hey, Samira Fizz is the best deck in the game. How do I counter Samira Fizz? The answer to that is Jinx Kennen, and then you kind of look for another deck that's good but just doesn't get annihilated by the rest of the format. You're commonly seeing that as Aatrox Vayne. We've been playing this Jinx Kennen Aatrox Vayne over the course of the past few videos, but you can also find things like Jarvan Shen that fit this space quite well. I think this is something that we're going to see quite a bit of over the course of the event itself. This is the kind of spaces you're where at either A, these are the decks I've played a ton of on the ladder. I just want to play the decks that I'm super comfortable with. That's a perfectly valid reason to be bringing this decks, and I think this is something that we'll definitely see a lot of in the top cut. Or you're going to be in the space to where you're like, well, I want to play in the event, but I don't know a good lineup. I'm going to hit the Google, type in good best of 3 lineups, and this Mastering Runeterra top 8 is going to turn up, and then you're just going to pick one of these lineups, and most of them do contain this Samira Fizz plus Jinx Kennen. And so this is something I think we'll see roughly a third of. If something shot up towards 50%, I think it would be this lineup. But the last one is the kind of counter lineup. And what always happens in these best of 3 style of events, there is one deck that always pops up the week before the event. It's not to say that it's not a good choice, but people typically aren't experienced enough with it to make it really kind of pop off. And what I think we're going to be seeing over the course of this next week is kind of similar to what Grandpa Roji here is doing, where you're going to have the Samira Varus as a part of your lineup. And so the way that this kind of comes together is you have this idea and this thought that, okay, I'm playing all of these decks that counter Jinx Kennen, right? Jinx Kennen is the deck that counters Samira, and so now I want to play the deck that counters the counter, and that leaves you in this spot to where you're playing a bunch of brawler-based decks, and so things like Samira Varus or Pantheon Yuumi or whatever, or you have just a whole big old bunch of like pie tosses in your deck, right? If you see this deck coming at you that just has a ton of 1 health units in it, then maybe you unlock playing pie toss, that just the very easy 2-for-1 1 damage removal spell as kind of a big counter to that. And so I'm looking to kind of land with this lineup in a space like right in the middle. This is going to be the 2.5 of the meta, if you will. This is where FTP Bust hangs out. And that's how we kind of got into the lineup we're going to be playing. The Scouts is a fantastic matchup against both Samira Fizz and Jinx Kennen. It also carries a lot of weight against a lot of just the random shit in the format. It's very aggressive. It's very high powered. It has really powerful play lines to it, and so it works out quite nicely there. And then as you kind of fall more and more into that space of how do I counter these mid-range decks that counter Jinx Kennen, that's where you start to land on something like Aatrox Vayne. I'm more than happy to be playing that one in this. And then the next step to that is going to be Jax Ornn, to where we're going to be. Jax Ornn, fantastically strong against Aatrox Vayne, fantastically strong against decks like Scouts, but it starts to be weaker against things like Samira Fizz and Jinx Kennen. It's a deck that, against the kind of general inexperienced field, it's going to be kind of a 50-50. Against the highly, highly experienced Samira Fizz players and the highly experienced Jinx Kennen players, it's going to be closer to a 40-45% underdog than it is to that coin flip. But we have that in mind. We know that that's what we're getting ourselves into, and I've really brought some tunes to the Jax Ornn deck that I hope help push the advantages in our favor, so that if we do run into this Samira Fizz Jinx Kennen lineup, we have to play Jax Ornn. It's not just getting completely annihilated, and then it's a very powerful choice against a lot of the remainder of the meta outside of those 2 decks. And so to bring up our individual decks, the Scouts deck, the same one that we played in the previous video, I carry this idea in the format that I don't want to be playing highly expensive spells. There's just way too many super aggressive decks. Tell me you can find a good spot to play a Champion Strength against a Samira Fizz, or play a Buried in Ice against the likes of Jinx Kennen. It's not to say that you can't do it. It's just the times when you get to do it are very few and far between. And then there are still a lot of, say, Rite of Negation style spells. I expect to see a lot of Bandle City gens really jumping up through the meta to get the access to all those pie tosses against Jinx Kennen. And as those decks play a bunch of counter spells, and the big expensive spells don't really work out as well. And so our kind of choices within this lineup are starting to play more copies of Genevieve and starting to play things like Grumble Slug, so it's not as much of a tempo loss if one of our spells gets countered. Tying in the Grumble Slugs, we're going to see a little bit more with this as we progress on. I do really, really, really like 2 3s for 2 mana in this format, and the Grumble Slug really helps us out in that Jinx Kennen match, as it's a 2-for-1 against the majority of their deck. And so we have the Grumble Slug, the Marai Warden, and the Petricite Broadwing, all cards that are capable of 2-for-1ing the 2 ones that come out of the Samira Jinx deck. Very powerful options there. Up next, we have the Aatrox Vayne, and this one, again, tuned a little bit to be good against the likes of Samira Jinx. We're going to have the copy of the Darkened Fan in here to have us just get a little bit of life gain, and then the full 3 copies of things like Steadfast Elkin and Blocking Badger Bear to give us those high-quality units against both Samira Jinx and excuse me, Samira Jinx and, or I always call it Samira Jinx. I'm so confused now. You just got to mesh like the 4 names of the decks together, and that's what we're talking about between the Jinx and the Samira decks. But we've tuned a little bit in that sense, and here we are including things like Blinding Assault as a way to potentially just come in and steal some games. The Blinding Assaults do get much more vulnerable as we're in this space where we think pie tosses are going to be quite strong. But as you play against that kind of third deck, as you're out here playing against Aatrox Vaynes and you're playing against elites or whatever, these really have the option to shine. And so, last but not least, we have Jax Ornn, and it's going to look a bit different than you typically expect. There's a lot of odd choices that are coming out of our Jax Ornn list, and this is because we're looking to go into this event with the idea that we're just going to ban the most obnoxious control deck. And so I don't really want to dedicate as much space to playing the more expensive style threats that you would typically see in this deck. We're not playing the big overwhelming style cultist thing, and we've really cut out on a lot of that top end. But the big things to call out that we're doing here with Jax Ornn today is we have the 3 copies of Frostcoat Cub. So as I was talking earlier about really liking these 2/3s for 2 mana that play so well into the likes of Jinx Kennen, Frostcut Cub does the same thing. And so we aren't hopefully running into as many of these matches as to where we're like, oh boy, I play a Weaponsmith's Apprentice on 1 and have to trade. I play a Jax on turn 2 and have to trade. And then on turn 3, I play Innovative Blacksmith and have the choice between Scout and Overwhelm. And so I have another 3-cost card that's just going to trade with all of my opponent's 1 mana 2/1s. And so the Frostcoat Cub and Favored Artisan are big ways to really help get in front of those Jinx Kennen decks. And then the Cub has the additional advantage that in the late game, it can flip into big dog form, whatever that's actually called. He's able to come down as the slightly different Alpha Wild Claw. The other kind of things that we're playing in here is we have 1 copy of Fracture. This is a card that the AoE can be quite strong against both Fizz and against Jinx, but the destroy equipment against something like Aatrox Vayne is quite relevant as well. We're playing Inner Beast in our combat trick space. Everyone knows that I am a humongous fan of Inner Beast because the stance swaps that it generates are so strong, and having access to the AoE stance can be quite strong against those decks as well. The other things that we're calling out with this is we have 1 copy of 3 Sisters, 2 copies of the Unforgiven Cold. These are what we're expecting to see turn up with, say, the Varus decks. And so people often ask me, why do you play things like the Unforgiven Cold instead of playing Harsh Winds? Harsh Winds is just better all the time because you get to pick the targets. Not necessarily true. So if your opponent's coming at you with a 20 attack Varus, what do you want in that space? Do you want to have the card that can pop a spell shield or the one that can't? You're right. You want the one that can pop a spell shield. And so the Unforgiven Cold is what we're bringing, as I expect things like Samira, or I expect things like Samira, God, what's it even called? Samira Varus to really kind of be popping off in the upcoming days. And it gives us a great advantage there while still being decent against things like Aatrox Vayne. And so if you get to pop some of the bigger units with your Frostbite, it can be quite good as there as well. And so that's the deck. That's what we're doing battle with today. You all know what we're going to do before the battles begin, though. We're going to come out here and pay that pay-to-win price, and it's a Fracture today. I was pretty certain this one was gonna be the one, our big tech card. I've been like looking for spots and places to fit this thing in the meta, and it never really quite came together. But I think if there's a meta where Fracture has a chance to pop off, I think this might actually be it. And oh god damn it, this thing's not ready until noon. I'm gonna have to wait another half hour before I queue up, and so I guess I'll be back here in just a little bit. I was ready. I thought the thing's here. I'm ready to go and want to push the button, and then we're not even allowed to push it. And so, gotta is what it is. All right, here we go. Here we go. What's up now? All right, scouts, birds, cats. It's not a cat. I was playing some games in between in the downtime, and I found out that It's actually a dog. The Frostcoat Cub or whatever it's called. It's actually a dog. It's not as egregious as the what is it? There's the I always called it a fearsome dog. It was the 2/1 fearsome out of Shadow Isles that night falls into the +2 attack. And, it's apparently a bird, but you can only be right about so many things, I guess. But all right, I'm surprised everybody's not just immediately queued up, not just right there at the gates, waiting for noon to roll across and just pushing the button. I think, like, every time an open turns about, there's always like a select crew of the Runeterra Twitter that just gets around and starts bitching about certain topics. and one of the things you always see is that you're able to like change the clock on your computer. So if you want to like start an hour early or something, then you can switch the clock back an hour. And I think you could probably do this and start playing against people in the East Coast, but I'm not entirely certain if that's what it is. But into the battle up against Drew D. Actually, my last game on the ladder was against him. This Seraphine Caitlyn deck off to the right is a back alley bar based deck, just a real heavy control type number, which, you know, I think I'm kind of okay with going up against. My big concern with this lineup is that it's going to be able to really pick on scouts, and so I think I'm looking to actually ban out Jarvan Shen, and then we're probably going to have to do battle with what I'm assuming is like Aatrox, Vayne, and scouts, and he's going to try and 2-0 the scouts, and so we'll see if that's what comes up. But I think we're okay against this back alley bar deck. It felt a lot like how you would see the Victor decks, like if you see Victor Aphelios. Wow, did not expect to see scouts get banned. But if you see Victor Aphelios in I guess Eternal now has like a lot of card generation and a lot of discard for that card generation, and it really felt like that was the route that this deck was taking. And so this is interesting. Like it's a very kind of an aggressive keep hanging on to the Ranger Knight Defector, but this strikes me as a deck that just can't handle it very well. But we'll just go ahead and get rid of it. This is like one of these starts where I'd feel so much better if this Fleet Feather Tracker was an Elkin, and then we just had access to an equipment or something. Like, it feels like everything we need, but like this hand needs a lot more going for it, especially in terms of drawing an equipment, and so kind of a bummer in that sense, but I think we'll be okay.
Sun, run, bun, doesn't have to rhyme.
Just not really the place we're looking to have Fleet Feather Trackers running around.
Hot on the trail.
Right. I don't think Caitlyn attacks here. We can most certainly block her. I don't really want to be spending a form up in this spot, but we could. And now we did hit with what we were looking for. We have the Defector, we drew a Darkened Spear. We can do everything that we need. This is a spot to where, you know, the card that would be the worst would be like a Hush, but Hush isn't even that good in the face of the Spear, and so I think I'm on board with this. Got our blocking Badger Bear ready to go. He's ready to get in front of the daring Poros. See if he adds another unit. Like, it's not awesome getting this trade with the Fleet Feather Tracker, but I just don't think it's going to do anything the rest of the game. So let's just go ahead and get this unit out of the way, force him into combat with our better ones, and hopefully we don't have as many problems there. Now we're in this spot to where we can Cataclysm off the Defector into Seraphine and look to have another round of attacks for this turn. Interesting, big old boy, another big Defector turning up from the woodwork. I don't think we need to really just make a big high-powered turn next turn. Let's just add it. Like, what's he really going to do this turn that we care about? He was playing Hex Bliterators, which is a kind of a problem. Maybe that's the thing we need to play around here. We'll just go ahead and take the Cataclysm in We'll have the 2 mana backed up, so if he wants to Hex Obliterate our Defector, then we can survive out of it. And now that should almost certainly end the game. Most certainly. famous last words from Old Bust. Most certainly win a game.
I did my best.
But we're getting close. Nice little 10-piece nugget coming through. We can open attack next turn with the Defector. Not guaranteed to get a kill with the Defector on this open, but you have to imagine that it takes a lot of work to take down a 2-health tough. And so if he doesn't have some kind of heal, then this should just end the game. But even if it doesn't, he's going to have to spend a bunch of mana trying to get that Defector off of the board. Alright, victory achieved, victory unlocked. I'm glad we got to play that ladder game. Like, if we hadn't got to play that ladder game before this event started, I would have just been clueless in terms of what was coming at us from this deck. But having that one game really just unlocked everything in terms of what to expect. And so with this, we don't have draws that really come out the gates. You have the option with this to where, do you want to like really hard mulligan for a Weaponsmith's Apprentice into a Jax or something? And we're kind of far away from that. And so I wouldn't mind picking up a 2/3 for 2. We find the favorite artisan here, but I think what's ultimately going to be most important here is being able to have just units to play. Right? I don't want to run into one of these hands to where we have like 2 combat tricks and a fish fight in one unit, and then we play the unit and he's able to just kill it, and then we're just stuck with a handful of combat tricks. And so I like having the castaway and the combat cook in that sense, and then it also gives us the equipment. You can run into these weird spots to where your deck won't really activate itself because you haven't drawn any equipment, and just keeping the 2 makes me feel pretty good. We know we have a lot of time against this deck. It's going to be a very slow back alley bar style deck, so I think that's pretty okay. So now I'm pretty on board with the fearsome equipment. He shouldn't have too many units capable of blocking a fearsome, and we can wait a little bit and see in terms of the next one we get. Like, I'm a little more interested in defensive style of equipment at this point. We didn't really have the choice between, a tough one or a tough one or like a combat or a pot of pain, but I think that's okay. It's kind of defensive and that he can't really block this. Now with this turn, I just assumed that we were going to immediately slam the combat cook, but now that we've drawn the innovative blacksmith, we can look to get another forge and maybe an entrancing lure or something. I like taking this a little bit slower here. Combat reel's kind of interesting as well. Just refill on some of that mana. I think that'll be good. I don't really want to be forging the combat reel though. This is our like lowest quality equipment. Yeah, you have to kind of start to ask yourself, which of these equipment do I want to put on Ornn? And that's most certainly going to be the fearsome equipment. Just quite relevant as he's going to play cards like Augmented Clockling, right? Just ways that we can still attack through this board. Speaking of the devil. So who do we want to take on this hook? I was like kind of leaning towards the Seraphine just to get her off of the board, but I mean, she's at 1 spell, right? She's not going to be flipping anytime soon, and while it's not ultimately super impressive with this Clockling, I think I'd like to just at least remove it while we can.
The craft sings.
Now we get a point of mana back. I don't think we're going to be catching this turn, but we at least have the option.
Not on my work site, bub.
So the thing I will say is we play against these decks that have the likes of Hex Obliterators in them. You want to be kind of spreading out the strength of your equipment, and so I don't really want to be putting 3 and 4 forges on this single amulet, since you can come in with a Hex Obliterator and just blow it up. So that's not super ideal at the end of the day. Now with this, we could have played a catch. I just think that these cards on the board are so low value at this point. It's not like we care to keep a favored artisan. We don't really care to keep something like a combat cook around. The real power is in the equipment. So I'd kind of prefer to save the catch for a space to where we can protect a Jax, or we can protect an Ornn, or we can kill a relevant unit from the opponent, or if we can deal, you know, that last point of damage that we need. Just none of those ideas and concepts were coming together with that board. Alright, so combat reel back in hand. Gonna load up the amulet, gonna play the combat cook. And we'll have some decisions next turn. I don't think the Glacial Saurion's gonna be coming down just yet. We're getting to this point to where we do want to start banking up a little bit of mana so that we can pop off some of these spells. But, you know, pretty reasonable open. Just trying to flip his Seraphine. Interesting. I mean, I guess it costs 0 off of the Song Spinner, but...
Oh, think I got a beat.
Oh, too much salt.
What am I missing here? Well, if this is for, like... Oh, Jesus, a free form up? No, that's... I was thinking more along the lines of he just has, like, more Seraphines in hand. Ugh, that was nasty. It's like I knew something was up. You don't just make that attack, but... Alright. Let's get the Saurion going. Why didn't we draw a card? When I'm summoned, grant the top 3 units of your deck 1/1. Oh, this is not a Weapon Master. This is a... Okay. I just saw the equipment on the Artisan and was like, yep, you're getting a bonus. Not quite. Not quite. That one's on me. Alright, well, we need to be winning this one fast. This is kind of... A lot of things went wrong over the course of the past couple of turns. That's how you turn something around. It's the absolute perfect draw for us at this point. E-bar is perfect. And so what I'm thinking here is I'd like to get an equipment on the Saurion and then copy something with Ornn. But, I mean, copying I guess a Fishawhack wouldn't be terrible. Ornn doesn't have Overwhelm yet. Just our equipment are a little out of order in the way that we actually want them to be. But whip an ally, send in the Fishawhack. It's not super important to get it on board right away. Because it's the strongest one in hand. We could just copy the strongest one in hand, but Ornn having Overwhelm now feels pretty good. He didn't have it yet. He hadn't flipped just yet. So what we're going to look to do with this next turn is we want to hook the back alley Barkeep into combat. As it stands, his Seraphine is incapable of blocking a Fearsome. He might get there, right? I mean, he's 2 spells away. There's not an unreasonable chance that he can't just flip the Seraphine, but we at least want to make him put in the work. So let's put Challenger. I guess we'll just put it on Jax, or on Ornn, whatever this guy actually is. We could Unforgiven Cold, right? That's a thing that you can do with these Fearsomes. Maybe that's something we should have thought about as we were making the Ornn attack, is you can Fearsome the Artisan, Fearsome Ornn, and then play the Unforgiven Cold, and he can't make any blocks on those, but this seems a little bit stronger at the end of the day. See what happens. More spells coming in. There's a Weapon Hilt. Seraphine's flipped. Now the nonsense really gets to start. Am I right? Battle Fury. Love it. I don't think it's enough, but I do like what's happening there. Double heals. Alright. I think that was enough. I think we've achieved victory. GG. Alright, It's wild. It's wild what a single ladder game can teach you. All right, GG.
Oh, not this again.
All right, next battle. Good stuff. Good stuff. Always feels good to take down the old Seraphine. You didn't have to see me turn into a salty old man with that one, so a little bit of bonus for everybody. All right, what's up next? All right, so there we go. What are we up against? Like with this one, I'm going to end up taking this Viego Ionia deck out. This strikes me as being the most control-y of the control decks, while also having Ionia in it. If we get this triple Ionia lineup out of this one, dude seems to be quite the lover of denies, but I think we can stand up fine against the Poro King, and then cat. There we go. And then, yeah, I assume this is probably another control decky style thing with the Caitlyn Seraphine, but it strikes me as being the least obnoxious one. And so let's go ahead and kick things off with scouts. You know, see how they go. So what we're going to end up doing with this is I like to start with our either like our really powerful cards like Misfortune, or our cards that let us get 2-for-1s right from the go. So it's things like Marai Warden. We like things like Island Navigator, blocking Badger Bear, things that you can't just remove from the board with one Mystic Shot. And so I think it's okay to start with Shell Shocker, right? This is a fine open attack, or a fine attack with it on the first turn, but otherwise not really looking for cards like Fleet Feather Tracker. And I know I didn't talk about the likes of Durandi Sculptor in this deck, but Durandi Sculptor comes down on turn 2, just gets blown up by a Mystic Shot, where things like Rumble Slug come down, probably take 2 removal spells to get off the board. We'll see what turns out, see what turns up. Oh, Seraphine. She is strong against our friends here with the only the 1 health, but you can attack around her. This is seeing the chip roll down. It just reminds me of those excellent plays that you could get out of the Reaver's Row decks, like Reaver's rowing out a chip to be a 3/3. It's fantastically powerful. But those days were gone. I was sitting around in that old format, just like wondering where the random 2/4 was. Right, you used to get that 2/4 crab that cost 1 mana. He's not around anymore. I guess he's stuck in the lands of Eternal, but he was certainly a unit I missed missed having access to. But all right, opponent double Encore, didn't play any of the cards from it, and they're just gone. What was that? Syncopate and Glimpse from Beyond? Sucks for you, bro. I don't know what else to say to our Seraphine-based opponent. You just get what you get sometimes. But what are we gonna do here? It's like we have a touch of an awkward hand in the sense that we want to play Quinn next turn, but adding Quinn to the board, we're going to be completely full, assuming the opponent doesn't remove any of our units. And so you start to say, like, well, maybe we can Cataclysm down this Seraphine, which we can. It's fine. But it makes it to where we're in a spot to where we can't play Champion Strength for 2 more turns. And so there is a lot of power in having Quinn on the board and then playing the Champion Strength on the opponent's turn, so you still get the 2 attacks out of it. But I just kind of feel like if we get the Seraphine off the board, then we have the opportunity next turn to play Quinn. Opponent plays a unit, we can hook that unit out of combat with Valor, get that Quinn attack in, and it just really sets up a nice big chunk of damage that we're able to do. So didn't quite come together, but I think still taking the Seraphine down with Valor is fine, and maybe getting off a Champion Strength 2 turns from now will be okay. I really don't expect we're going to be resolving too many Champion Strengths in this match, but as it stands, we don't exactly need it.
There was a little fella asking for me.
Still heart steady.
Not expecting the Puffcat Peddler to come in, but
Not a meddler.
Sure thing. So he's gonna ace our Quinn, but that's not a bad turn, right? We've emptied out his board. We got rid of what's got to be 7 or 8 mana worth of cards for only 5, and he's not going to be able to add anything to the board now. So pretty reasonable. Chip just out here ready to do the work. Am I right? That's when you know you're doing it right. I'm Chip, and I'm here to show you Targon. Ugh. Poor guy. Sorry you had to be stuck in that faction. So what do we got? Badger Bears ready to roll in. We can still get everything on board, right? Next turn we only need a 2-bank, and so we can add the Fleet Feather Tracker, add the blocking Badger Bear. Maybe get to pull off the Champion Strength. I mean, you just don't need it. This is one of these spots to where we'll play the Champion Strength second. So we can add the Badger Bear. Our open attack is good enough to just end the game. And then if it doesn't end the game, we can ideally finish off with the Champion Strength. But I think this is probably going to be a little bit too much for the opponent to handle. Alright, we will go for a little to big, though. If we end up running into, he's playing Ionia, so he can't have that barrier lifesteal kind of card. If that's something we're going to see, attacking little to big makes it so he has to block our units down here to the left, right? He really wants to be blocking Badger Bears, so if they were to the left of our attack, he could get the block he wants and prevent a bunch of damage through the heal. But this little to big attack makes him block to the left. Didn't have it. GG. See what Aatrox Vayne can do. I feel a little bit better with Aatrox Vayne. Just you have the access to all of the big Darken, and as these games drag on, when you switch from early game stylistic things with the birds and the equipment, and then turn 8, turn 9 rolls around, and you say, "Oops, I'll play a Darken." it's a nice little good early, good late kind of thing that we could pull off with this. Alright, same deck. So this is not much of a start. I don't feel too comfortable just leading off with these blinding assaults, but I don't want to be in this spot to where we go into like turn 4 and just don't have any plays. And so hopefully we won't be stuck in a world to where we're really counting heavily on the blinding assault, but if that's what it comes down to, it is what it is. So I will lead off with the Fleet Feather Tracker here. We should get a chance to get in a couple of points of damage, but we won't play Valor next turn. We're just going to look to bank up that mana. Ideally, we'll just be playing units instead of passing or something, but we'll see how it goes. The kind of awkward thing with playing the Fleet Feather Tracker here instead of Valor is you do have this space to where, say on turn 3, we just play Valor and then we equip it with the Darkened Fan, and then we assume opponent's going to remove it, whatever. But that lets us go into turn 4 with these defectors and 2 mana banked up, and so we have an opportunity to spend that mana better. But since we played the Fleet Feather Tracker, we can no longer play the equipment and the Valor, so little potential for badness there. But with this, I'm fine to just lose out on the bird. If it gets a trade with the Flash Bomb Peddler, that's okay. And it's kind of nice taking the 3-bank into the next turn and give us a little bit more protection for these Night Ranger defectors. Alright, you've been Mystic Shot. You tried hard, bird. Sometimes it's just not enough. A Darkened Spear. You can really load up these defectors for the next combat. So we'll get the guy in. Tough. Pretty good against the Flash Bomb theme, right? Flash Bombs just don't do anything, and so always a bit of a bonus there. And now on this next turn, we should be able to get these double defectors going. Really powerful round of attacks. Says, uh-oh. I got this unworthy bounce spell, but I can't deal with two. Ooh, nice, just a Will of Ionia, not the thing that actually destroys our equipment. Oh shit, we didn't play our Darken Spear. Oops. A little bit of whoops. I got so excited with how things were going here, and then it just didn't quite come together. Look at that, you got the double hit on our guy twice. It functions like puff caps with tough, right? With the it does the amount of damage that gets shown off the draw. It's not one after one after one after one, and so it's a pretty big eye roll hitting all those flash bombs like that, but thankfully our bro is pretty strong. So how do we want to handle this now? We do have these, the Cataclysm that we picked up, so we can look to play, say, Vayne, and then Cataclysm our unit into probably Caitlyn now, and get a rally off of it. I think that's the way we want to go, but if we want to take down Caitlyn, we're going to need to use the catch, and so I'm just not going to play the Vayne here. So we'll preemptively catch. Kind of sucks to have to do that, but I don't want to get into combat with this guy just having 3 health and then Caitlyn being able to get the takedown. Alright, well, we'll get her off the board one way or another. I think we'll go Harpy now. Go ahead and put that Darkened Fan on the board, get the good double attacks with the extra unit coming out. And then if it comes down to next turn, you know, Darkened Spear is the big unit that we would prefer to be playing. Get that Naka up and running and see what he's capable of doing. But with the way we've drawn our deck, that Anaka is going to be summoning Fleet Feather Trackers, but, you know, it's a free unit. Nothing wrong with a free unit. There is a Spirit's Refuge. Okay. Not exactly how I would have lined up those blocks. I think you're ideally going to be putting the 3/5 in front of the Ranger Defector and then putting a 1/3 in front of the Dragonling, and then you get a second round of blocks after that. Can't see what's in their hand, you know? Can see this tumble coming out of Vayne, though. That's what we're gonna be looking to do this turn. We have plenty of mana. We can play Vayne, get the tumble the scout unit, have that be our rally for the turn, try and finish off the game. Uh-oh. KOs some units. You could look to preemptively form up here, but I just don't think it's going to be necessary. If we end up losing the bird, it kind of is what it is.
Those who kill innocents are no more than fiends.
Sure. This should be the game ender. I'm not particularly worried about losing Vayne here, right? We're really interested in the tumble attack, but with the opponent being tapped out, we'll just go ahead and take it and call it a day. Alright, my dude. We're gonna let Vayne survive. I'm not gonna attack with her. say show some respect. Show some respect.
Expertly done.
Hey, GG.
Now to root out the next Vayne.
Now on to the next one. Not bad. I remember when that Justice Rider got he got upgraded, and then he still didn't see play. Same poor guy. It's been a few balance patches. It may have been before the era of balance patches, but Justice Rider was like just super expensive. He was like a 3.56 cost or a 3.55 cost or something, and nobody played it. Might have been a 2.4. Might have been a 2.45 cost, and they're like, let's just see how many stats we can put on you and call it a day. People apparently love this flash bomb RNG mechanic, and so let's try to make this competitive viable. Ugh. People like squeezing those butt cheeks, you know. You gotta squeeze the cheeks every draw step. I'm curious. I should have looked it up when the variety patch is coming out, when we get to switch to playing Eternal. I feel like this season really crept up on us in terms of the open tournament coming. It seems like there's like a 2-week thing, right? So there's definitely the monthly patch cycle where you get a new set, you get a balance patch, you get a variety set, and then that happens once a month. And then it feels like the opens are on kind of the odd weeks in between. So you have the set come out, 2 weeks later you have an open, 2 weeks later you have the variety set, then 2 weeks later you have an open, like that. But it feels like the open this time was really close to the release of the variety set. Or I guess it's the balance patch this month, but maybe we were just having too much fun. Time was flying, you know? All right, opponent has been found. Let's see. This it looks very close to what Grandpa Roji was taking to the open, or the Runeterra open. He got second with it. He was playing the Bilgewater Tristana deck as a counter to Kennen. He was playing Aatrox Vayne as a kind of good against everything style deck. I think he was playing Samira. Samira Varus as his third deck instead of Jack. But as far as this goes, like I'm somewhat comfortable playing against the Tristana deck. Like it's really looking to pick on 1 health units, and I just don't think it's one that we ultimately have to be super worried about. But I think the one we're never banning is Samira Jack, or Seraphine Jack. I don't know what this deck's actually trying to do. It's probably a back alley bar deck, but I think the real question is, do we want to try and take down the Tristana deck? And, you know, Scouts can be kind of a scary match, right? As we played Seraphine and you saw us come down with a bunch of 1 health units in the early game, right? If they're looking to really pick on the 1 health units, we have a lot of draws that have a bunch, but I still feel like our deck is fairly well tuned to deal with that nonsense, and you can kind of see it a little bit more in this style of draw, to where the broad wings can all survive that stuff, and we can get in these spots to where, you know, try a broad wing for a 2/1, and then we get to soak up another spell. So I think that's probably the important thing here, is recognizing that your 1 health units aren't going to be that strong in this match, and just trying to get rid of them. All right, and so we have a real kind of thing here, and do we want to go ahead and just drop Misfortune? I think it's strong enough to probably go for. We could look to play it just like a little bit more conservatively, to where we have access to form up, or, you know, maybe the thing with next turn is that we just don't go for the super high valued play in the Island Navigator, and we look to just say play Broadwing Grumble Slug and have the form up defense. Because we're going to get a really big board here, and Misfortune's so critical. I'm just trying to think of how else they could take her down, and it's just got to be a prize fight, right? Let's do this. Let's protect her. She's just going to be so incredibly good, and the opponent's going to have to devote so many resources into taking her down. I think if we just get to kind of counter the opposing game plan of destroying Misfortune here with this form up, that we're going to be in a super good spot. Like, there's a lot of opportunity for this Island Navigator to just not even be that strong here, in the sense that the Misfortune shot into these Hungry Owlcats gets canceled by the Spell Shield. So, you know, there's a bit of risk there. Alright, but we'll take down the units that matter. We'll leave Misfortune at home. She's going to be quite strong the remainder of these games. I'm surprised to see Gnar come in. this should be kind of indicative of a prize fight coming in, generating pokey sticks or something. Like, that strikes me as being, like, why would you play Gnar in the face of a Petricite Broadwing? And then this is just your answer to misfortune. I think that's the way that this is going to go. Oh. Is not the way this is going to go. Alright, I'm in. Our misfortune just has to be safe at this point. Even if she's not, again, she's going to take so many resources, and if opponents in the spot on their next turn to where they're like, alright, well, I'm going to play a unit, prize fight, and group shot just to take misfortune down, we're going to get so much bored with Quinn and friends that I'm not too impressed with that. Ooh, and Genevieve as a perfect draw.
This mama is the beast mama.
I gotta show you the sights of Bilgewater.
So Quinn can come in. You could probably just pass, right? As opponent wants to really attack with Bandle Commandos, they really need something to go right here, but it really sucks if we're just taking a bank into the next turn. Like, if we had legitimate spells in hand, an opponent was like making us overbank 2 mana, then, you know, fine, whatever, but I don't think we can risk it here. Just gotta go ahead and play her.
The quiet of the woods.
Now Genevieve's gonna put in the work.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I don't know about you, but I'm excited for this combat. Look at that, you got Arcade Misfortune, you got Arcade Quinn on the arcade board. Oof, that's what life's all about right there. That's what it's all about. Interesting, that unit is not very good right now.
These woods belong to us. Still heart, steady.
Do something like this. Definitely want to bring in the Passive Burden. Just a pretty free attack with the Misfortune shot. The opposing deck's not going to have any combat tricks in it, I don't think. To the best of my knowledge, it's not going to have any, and so we should be fairly protected and not have to worry about Valor dying in that space.
Their pride will cost them. Bet.
Alright, then we'll leave the Bandle Commando back. He has to block with it or he's gonna die. And so
Praying and praying.
might as well only put 1 damage onto Misfortune, and then our love taps aren't going to actually kill any of these units. And so no particularly strong hooks out that way. Looking good though. Nice little run with the scouts. I love it so much when these additional cards get the skin upgrades. Like, not every skin that you buy does this additional stuff to the units. So it's sweet when you get like the extra Quinn birds and stuff with the fresh looking spells. Tell the intern he did a good job on that one. Good job, intern. Alright, well, pretty commanding board. No rallies, no cataclysms or anything here. This is why we start to play Cataclysm in this deck, right? I wanted just a little bit more interactivity. Like I didn't like just having this just massive pile of units and no real interactive spells like Cataclysm or single combat or whatever. And so I really like Cataclysm in this space, since you can Cataclysm off a scout unit and get that free attack. I don't know who necessarily came up with it. I know Conan said from the expedition space was the one that at least brought me onto it, and so I'm curious if he was the one or not. But it's been a while. It's been a year or so since that was really a thing, playing Cataclysm and Scouts. Hope old Conanson's doing well as well. If you're still out there listening and stuff, I haven't seen too much of him in the Twitter space these days. He did a ton of work in terms of with Path of Champions and putting forth the kind of encyclopedia of knowledge of all of the abilities and skills and deck lists and everything. So, incredible amount of work that he did.
I'll be damned.
Alright, well, we should still be in a pretty decent space this game. We'll step in front of Tristana. Her impact's not nearly enough. We'll get these big scout attacks on the next turn. Should be enough to end the game. Alright, Grumble Slug, you gotta stay at home for this one.
Like hunting thresher geese.
Everybody else is coming in though. Got him.
No! Great. Now let's get back out there.
Alright, scouts doing their thing. Aatrox Vayne up now. Let's see how it goes. Let's see if we get old Aatrox into a prize fight or something. What do we got? Not a particularly compelling start. Again, we can keep the Broadwing. I'd like to find another equipment to go along with it. There we go. Dark and Spear will get the job done. I have to start to wonder like how quickly we can throw that unit away though. Like when you have the even attack token and the defector in hand, just so very powerful being able to load him up on turn 4. And if we get the Broadwing stuck on board, we can't really do that.
I don't play.
We'll see. We'll see how this turns out. But right, if we want to play the blocking Badger Bear this turn, we won't have the 2 mana next turn to load up the defector. Is Vandal City Mayor good enough to remove? I think he is. The thing that's the downside with trying to go after the Vandal City Mayor right now is if he has a damage spell to swing at the Broadwing, then it's not going to get the kill. So I'm not amped about that. Let's just overbank 1. It's not the end of the world, and he should start to really struggle with these defectors. Says, uh-oh. The struggles are about to begin.
Anyone seen any sheep around here? Last night.
It's the kind of least defensive unit that he has. So we'll see how this pans out. I was expecting him to put like a target onto, say like the Owlcat and then start making blocks into the defector, but clearly doesn't seem that interested in it. And next turn, I mean, we're going to take a 1 hit from this Vandal Commando. I assume he's going to open attack with it. He's not going to have any other scouts. But we can get the blocking Badger Bear down before the second one comes in. Then we might have to make a bit of usage of this fish fight. We don't have any great targets on board. But if we want to upgrade to other units, then or upgrade that equipment onto, say, the Harpy, or to give the Elkin tough, then we're going to have to get it on board. But let's just get this Gnar off the board. I have like so many of these cards to where we start getting into Magical Christmas Land, to where you start seeing all of the fantastically powerful plays that you can do, and you really want to like min-max everything on the board. But I think what we're doing is just good enough, so we don't have to worry about it that hard. The Harpy can stay at home. We'll see if we pick up a different equipment next turn and can maybe get both of them on board. But no reason to go overboard with this. Nice. I'm leaning towards this. Like, we'll just play Vayne. I definitely want Vayne seeing all of these attacks, and then maybe we'll just tumble next turn, right? That's certainly on the table. Some gigantic unit on the top of our deck as well. I had to keep like highlighting Vayne to see if our to see if our unit had like the +2/+2 from these defector attacks, but whoever's on top is going to be at +4/+4 now, and so I'm about to have a seriously meaty threat coming off the top of the deck.
Purge with silver.
Nope, not attacking with Vayne. Everybody else can come in though. And the next turn, we do have the tumble fish fight combo, and so we can look to, if he makes a Tristana next turn, we can fish fight the Tristana, tumble the defector, re-equip the defector, and be in a pretty good spot. This all looks fantastic. You know, check the Oracle's Eye, right? All of his units are gonna die. Our only death is gonna be the Broadwing. No complaints from me. Sure.
Mama's home.
Vandal Commandos, so many elusives coming at us. We gotta try our hardest to get through this wall of Outcats.
Serving lead.
Here's our big unit though. Looks like it's a big Aatrox. You don't need to get him on board immediately, but like all these cards suck, right? I don't wanna waste my time with like dropping fish fights and tumbles in front of this stuff. I'm just gonna pass this turn. If he sends it back to us, it's okay. I just don't want a fish fight when it's not Tristana. Right? She's essentially the only unit that matters. I think it's kind of tough for opponent in this spot as well, being and they don't really want to
On it
just
and
pass. There you go. Now the fresh thing with tumble though is we can tumble this turn and get the 2 attacks in. That's gonna flip our Vayne, and then we'll get free tumbles next turn. And so I think we still want to just send it. But it would have been nice if there was a good fish fight target. Vayne's gonna flip on this one. It's a little dangerous to send her into combat. Probably shouldn't do it. It's a lot safer now. She would still die to a prize fight though. Okay, just the defector. Like this is one of these spots to where opponent's gonna be able to fill out their board, but we can't fill out ours. And so I don't really want to be trading the defector for a tentacle, and I don't really want to be playing a form up out of this combat. So I think that's fine. This is a pretty good bank into the next turn. And so we'll look to make the kind of triple attack this round, right? I'm going to add in Aatrox. We'll get our first attack in. We'll be swinging with pretty much everybody. Then after that first attack, we can tumble the Ranger Defector. That's going to be our scout attack, give us the attack token back, and then we can attack with everybody else again after that. So this is the kind of space to where we'll probably be playing the form up onto the defector, since he'll get the bonus stats out of that. He's 100% blocking it with an Outcat. I'm just ultimately a little worried about prize fight, so we'll see if that one comes in. I would think if he had a prize fight, he might have just gone for it, though, so we might be safe. I mean, granted, it's not a particularly strong card when you only have a bunch of 2-power units on the board, but he's got to want to start adding Tristanas and stuff. Maybe he just doesn't have her. Gnar is the answer. Alright. He's not really like the premium target, right? The only unit I particularly care about at this point is Tristana. But we're about to go back up to 20 health. Opponents tapped pretty low on units, and we have the kind of free cataclysms coming along the way. So, or I'm sorry, the free tumbles coming along the way. So, it's just too good. Alright, well, we can trade for Gnar this way. Give us that attack token back. I mean, I think we can send Vayne. It's just so expensive for him to actually take the Vayne down, and we're pretty close to ending the world as well, so.
Spraying and praying. Cooking with lead.
Feels safe to me. That's gotta feel safe to you, right? We've got the big Aatrox and the Vayne on the board. That's looking good. That's looking strong. Start tumbling this massive, overwhelming Aatrox. So we drew Vayne. She has to have a ton of stats. We can't see how many bonus stats she actually has, but she has to be like an 8/8 or so. Alright, who wants to tango with this guy? And so, as it stands, we can get 2 attacks out of Aatrox this turn, right? We have the Cataclysm and we have the Tumble. And you sometimes have to be careful in terms of your Cataclysms and then having them capable of actually having a unit on board. Oh, it doesn't come up so much here where opponent has like 1,000 owls in hand, but you can run into these spots to where, you know, it's like turn 13 and you're both playing off the top of your deck and your opponent just outright doesn't have any units, and you can't get the attacks in that way sometimes. But this is all well and good. We could have looked to tumbled that first, but I feel like the only way this guy is winning this game is if he does some kind of big bullshit impact play. And that's what it kind of felt like was coming at us there. It was like some kind of just big bullshitty impact play, and now, you know, he has to block with Tristana. We're still lethaling through Tristana, so let's send him on in. Call it a day. Trying to figure out how to do the prize fight here. You can prize fight Pokestick and kill off Aatrox, so it's no guarantees that we'll be finishing the game off of this, but we should still be in a pretty commanding position. G?
A sentinel's work is never done.
Alright, next battle. Yeah, it's interesting to see the Tristana decks rise back up. We actually played Tristana Demacia in the last Open, in the Siren Song Open, and I liked a lot that it had going for it. I've just never been a huge fan of the prize fight version, and so it's hard for me to gauge how good it actually is because I just haven't played very many games with it. But it's also tough when I have a problem with Grandpa Roji. This is just 100% pure respect, but. Grandpa Roji, if you're not familiar with him, he's played in Worlds. I think he did pretty successfully at Worlds in the last one, and he's very well known for doing quite well with Talia Malphite. And there's this thing you have to kind of watch yourself with, in terms of, like, you'll be watching Twitter and you'll see somebody be like, oh boy, look, I did the amazing thing to where I had an 80% win rate across 50 games or 20 games or whatever. And then you see it's somebody like Grandpa Roji, and he's just better than everybody, right? And so it's not, it doesn't tell the entire story when you see someone that spectacular do that well with a deck, right? If you see the tweet that FTP Bust took a deck to 80% win rate across 50 games, that deck's probably legitimately the real deal. But players like Grandpa Roji are on such a higher level of skill that it's not really an apples to apples comparison when we make that tweet. And so seeing a deck like that come out of him, or like the Tank Buster right here, it's a little bit different. And so as far as our decks are concerned with this, we're gonna ban out the Nasus deck. It's just the most obnoxious thing that our deck can go up and face. It does have some more problem matches in here, right? I'm not really excited about playing against the Gnar Transform deck. It does a lot of powerful things against our decks, and then it still has the likes of all of the counter spells, right? The Shurima Bandle City number can play Avenging Vestias, which it most certainly is, but then it can continue to add in the likes of Rite of Negations and play even, puzzling signposts if they want to, and so very powerful. I believe the Tank Buster actually won that Mastering Runeterra event that we were talking about, so props to him. But up against Ashe Shadow Isles, this is a deck that I was really thinking was going to be a thing right at the beginning of the season, and I went out and played a couple of games with it and was just like, nope. I'm not playing this bullshit. But it seems to be a legitimate contender these days. It's going to be looking to use the Frostbites along with cards like Quietus to shrink the opponent's stats and then soul cleave them or whatever. So in a spot like this, I am happy to drop the width. I think it's fine to just go ahead and throw in Misfortune. If she eats a soul cleave this turn, we still get to attack for 4, which is a pretty good deal. But I don't suspect any of our units are really going to be long for the world, and so I like this ability to just go wide, right, with the Maokai Wardens and the Quinns, and then boosting the units with the Inspired Lights. It just gives us much better presence against these targeted removal decks. So we'll see. I mean, we have the full combo of stats here, right? We're going to add in Broadwing. This can actually block Ashe here if we really want. We're not going to, but it can. We have the Grumble Slug to fill out the mana, and then next turn we can add in Quinn with the Inspired Light. There is a legitimate reason here that we could actually look to Inspired Light so we can threaten this Ashe, but it's just so much better with Quinn on the board that I would rather just wait around.
Demasians are no easy prey.
There's the Quinn. Queue up this Inspired Light as fast as we can. And see if we can't get a combat here. That's kind of mean. That's kind of mean. I was hoping to get the double attacks into Ashe, but not going to be the case. Liz board is Dunzos. Oh shit, Quinn can't attack. I just saw the unit on board and forgot that she was about to get frostbitten. That's okay. Still have good attacks otherwise, and we have this other Quinn in hand, should he have a way to take ours down. This is a pretty strong Quinn though, right? She's very close to flipping. Champion Strength. Interesting. We can certainly cast it next round. Now with this, I'm not entirely certain what these deck lists look like. It's like, I want to play Champion Strength, but I don't know if we have to play around the Ruination or if we have to play around Winter's Breath. And so, a bit of worry, a bit of concern in that sense, but I think we can try and... What's Winter's Breath even cost? It only costs 7, right? So he can most certainly play it. It's just the question is, do we want to just say trade the Maokai Warden for literally any spell in his deck? And I'm kind of okay with it, but I mean, if we're going to champion Strength next turn, we want to have the full 6 units on board. Let's add in the Shell Shocker. We can add in the Blinding Assault. We'll still be taking a 3 bank out of the round, and then next turn we can play champion Strength.
It's our time to shine, Valor.
So, squeeze him for us, fellas. If he's got a Ruination, this one's done. If he's got a Winter's Breath, this one's pretty much done. But this is one of those spots to where they're just going to drop 2 removal spells, then we're going to be looking pretty good. Okay. I'll give that one the pretty good classification. What's up now? Second Frozen in Fear on the big boy. That should flip the Ashe, right?
Avarosa, guide me!
So he is tapped out at this point. Let's just take the good Valor hook that we can get.
I got this.
Our other units are just going to die otherwise, so let's take the Ashe out of the equation. I think this is where we're forced to stop. Going to be a little bit short of lethal here, but No, we're not. We can hook in with the other challenger. Fine.
The tribes.
All right. Victory unlocked. Aatrox Vayne time. I'm not certain how this match lines up, right? With that last one, we have that ability to just get a bunch of width, and as your opponent's trying to play cards like Vengeance, that it's not nearly as good against a deck like Scouts as it is with this one, right? If you want to look at that against, like, say, the Tristana player, to where we had the to where we had that Ranger going over and over and over and over again, you don't really get the opportunities to do that against a deck like this. So we'll see how it goes. But with this start, I'm fine with this. He shouldn't have anything early capable of handling this 2/3 Fleet Feather Tracker, and these bonus stats can be pretty important in this space. So, well, there's one of the ways to deal with it. It's like you're kind of hoping that even if you can get a Frostbite or something, even if it gets Frostbitten or something, you can still attack. And then there's not a ton of units. Well, I guess the 3/1 Frostbiter can deal with that, but at the end of the day, I think I liked getting the equipment down. So let's spread this out a bit now. I'm going to add in the Broadwing. I'm going to add in the Badger Bear, and then we can look to equip outside. But now that we picked up a second Broadwing, do we want to just go full Formidable? That lets us keep the mana for the catch as well, but let's just go Badger Bear.
A chill in the air.
Destroys the equipment. Okay. Kind of a bummer, dude. Out here playing all these removal spells. Nobody wants to see that. Okay. Just make a sad noise and move on. Got it. Soul Harvest off the top. Bit of a bummer, man. You're making me frown out here. Alright, not getting involved with the 4/4. We have plenty of time in terms of our health, and so
Those who kill
we'll stay away from him. We really need to just pick up another equipment here, and we can start getting into some action. I mean, Harpy's fine, but not having any equipment is a bit of a bummer. There's just like not a lot we can do otherwise. I mean, we can add it and then just like not attack with it, which should just be like super obvious that we're up to weird shenanigans, but I think it's okay. Like, I'm just not going to send it directly into this Den Mother, and maybe it's not like super obvious in this space, since it does give him a chance to maybe play like an Ashe or something after combat, which would kind of threaten the unit, but he's a bummer when he doesn't have any equipment to go on him. That is a bit of the downside to only playing 9 though, right? We're not playing 10 or 11 equipment in this one. I was worried here that by just passing, he's gonna pass as well, but yeah, there's just like so little we can actually do in this space. Let's do this. Let's catch onto Vayne. I'm gonna put Vayne in front of one. Going to condemn the other one. Do we get smoked here by a Frostbite? Absolutely, but with the contents of our hand and just being so shitty, we just have to have something go right in this spot. And so we'll go ahead and drop it. Go. Come on, cat. Alright. So sad day there. Let's see if we pick up an equipment next turn. Gotta have something go right. Oh shit, that thing killed off our Vayne. That was a definite bummer there. I forgot these dudes were gonna grow. Alright, form up, isn't it? GG. Well, I guess at the end of the day, we did have an equipment, right? We had that Darkened Spear that just got hit by Quietus, so it's certainly a thing. I don't know. It's a kind of tough spot with this deck and the correct number of equipment to play. The thing you ultimately have to start to worry about is when you have these draws to where you draw like 2 or 3 equipment early and then don't have any units to play them on, and those games just tend to be losses all the time, and so. All right, into this one though. Steadfast Elkin ready to do the work. Let's see how it goes. All right, Maokai online. I bet you an ambush comes down next turn. What do you think? Ambush coming in? Nope. All right, so I mean, I think this is a safe enough Darkened Fan. I'm gonna look to play the Fan here, and then take a 3-bank on the next turn, and then follow up with the Defector into the Darkened Harp. I think that's probably the safest way for us to go about this here. Now that we picked up a second Darkened Fan, I'd like to have the equip go onto the Elkin, but this is all right. If we lose our dude to a combat trick, it's not the end of the world either. Sure. Right, that's the value in having the Darkened Harp on the board, but I think we would have like really regretted it if we went into turn 4 with the Defector and then didn't have the backup mana there. No, I can't block this one. Just too many good flips here. It's typically just Vestayas and Nidalees. It's like a Nidalee coming at us, so we're just never going to go in. Alright, hopefully here's our chance to turn things around. I think we're going to have to just kind of drop in Vayne. I want to start threatening the flip with her as well. The opposing deck, I don't think has a ton of interactive elements to it, so I don't think we get punished here with just like a bunch of stuff that causes problems. So send our guy in. He's going to take at least 1 block with this 2-1. Then we'll have to decide if we want to play Fish Fight, which this pretty much has to be an Avenging Vestaya, right? Can't have a second. I don't think you can have a second Nidalee on the board, and this deck should only be playing the 2. I don't think this deck plays like Ruin Trappers or whatever that guy is called. I guess at the end of the day, it's not terrible.
And I'm not interested in dying.
I think this is an Avenging Vestaya like 100% of the time. Oh. That Nidalee down, right? It could be an all-terrain trooper. Has to just be an all-terrain trooper now, right? You heard it here from Bust. It has to be. It can't be wrong. Can't be wrong. All right, it's this thing, the Aurora Hollownauts. So can we fall to 3? I mean, I think we can. I think we have to. The deck shouldn't have too many ways to be dealing damage to us and stuff, and then we can still try and make these big tumble plays. And then if we get this Vayne flipped for next turn and have the free tumble, it's going to be pretty good. He didn't hit us with a quicksand. That was going to be the scary play here. So I think we're in good shape. The Vayne flip. Could even look the Cataclysm on this turn if we want to. I don't think we want to. I like the idea that if things go wrong here, then we're going to be able to Cataclysm with this Aatrox next turn, or if we want to, we can even like play Deathbringer Strike since we have 2 Aatroxes now. It's like I'm thinking in my head, we have this opportunity to just switch into the Darkened Fan. I don't think I'm going to go for that, but that opportunity is there. Let's not start with our scout attack. Let's start with Aatrox. I think he's seen one of these. He's probably seen the one on the right, so he knows we have the second Aatrox in hand. I wasn't quite aware as to the way that that was going down. Pretty strong board, no denying that. Here comes the tumble. This will be our scout attack for the turn. Glad to see that pop off. Now, it's probably a little too dangerous to be attacking with Aatrox here. Like, what are the chances that we ever just get him with Aatrox, you know? We do have this opportunity to maybe, say, like, catch and then Cataclysm the shadows in the brush. I think I kind of like that. I'm just curious if he actually has a second ambush here. It's kind of tough to do. The other thing we could do is just put Darken Harp onto Aatrox. So we pick up his equipment. Maybe that's the way to go about it. We can Darken Harp Aatrox, and then we can put the fan onto Vayne. He's gonna have to block everything here. We're not gonna get the lethal this round, but that's okay. He's going to put the Hallow Knots in front of Vayne, so next turn we won't get the tumble, but we will still have a Cataclysm to try and pick up a scout attack. It ultimately just feels so much better, completely clearing out this board and gaining a shitload of health, right? It takes a lot of work to take us down from 11 at this point. We didn't even lose our Vayne. Nice. Alright, signals the GG. Mark it a W for bust. Alright, not bad, not bad.
Sentinel's work is never done.
Alright. Let's see if we can't make this our final battle. The last one in the line. Those prime glories. I had to take a peek. I think I'm at 35 trophies away from one prime glory, and then I think the second one's just unreachable. I think it takes like another 200 or 300 or so to get to, but you know, just a few gauntlets away from being able to get that one by. It's tough. Like there's so many of those trophies top loaded into the open event, and we didn't have a good one. We went like 3-3 or something. Unimpressive. That was during a weekend I didn't have electricity, and it was just a weird weekend. I was not prepared, but like hitting up to like 7 or 8 or 9 wins just takes you so far in terms of acquiring those trophies, and it was pretty tough to get that second buy without doing well in an open. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, like I haven't been playing any gauntlet. Like, you know, I guess if you play a gauntlet every day, then you ought to be getting like 50 or 60 tokens or so, and to something like that. But nonetheless, into battle here up against AJ the Pro. This is one, like, I just have such a hard time wanting to come in and ban out Samira Varus, and so I think we'll end up leaving that one up. I have a feeling that like Jack's Ornn is along the lines of the one that we want to take down. It's just I see a lineup like this, know that Scouts is going to be left up, and Scouts is in like real danger of getting 2-0'd here. But it feels like the deck that Scouts can beat is going to be the Samira Varus. The Aatrox Vayne matchup is, you know, not super great, but you can abuse their non-wide draws, to where Jack's Ornn tends to just be kind of a real roller coaster into scouts, and so we'll take that one away. Hopefully, this is the matchup we can potentially take down. All right, reasonable enough start. I would like a little bit more aggression in here, but being on the odd attacks with a 1 and a misfortune, and then the chain vest that we can still just drop down, I think that that's okay. Can't get the deck tracker back up. I ended up losing. Yeah, kind of is what it is. But I stopped between the tank buster round there and took a moment's break and opened up the remainder of the of the Soul Fighter reward path, and then the game crashed, and so a little bit tough there. That always messes with the deck tracker when the game restarts. But all right, bit unfortunate. He picks up a 2 health equipment here, so we can't just get the free hook next turn with the misfortune. Makes me a little bit sad. We can't attack our misfortune into this Hookmaster either, since this deck plays a load of combat tricks. It just I'm trying to remember the exact tricks it plays. I know it most certainly plays the cultist one. I don't think it plays Elixir of Wrath, but sometimes these decks play 1 copy, and I think there should be like 1 more or so running around in this thing. All right, Samira comes in. How safe can we be? Okay, I guess our misfortune's just not going to be safe, right? So let's pass and just let this combat happen. If he wants to roll into the next turn and let us get different units on board, then by all means that would be great. But I was gonna say, she's about to get hooked to her death. I thought my biggest worry was going to be dropping the Island Navigator and then Samira getting the hook into our small unit, but it was so much worse having the Samira come down late and take down our misfortune. I don't think we want to be making scout attacks next turn. This should be kind of just like build up into a for Demacia, so we don't want to be losing out on like too many units in this spot. And the thing to kind of watch out for here is we can take a hook into something. Say we want to hook the Samira with the Broadwing, and then leave our Bark Beast out to the right, and he's going to be nice and safe. But this is coming together reasonably. We're still going to be in this spot, it looks like, to where we can Inspired Light. We can hook Samira with a Broadwing, and then we can just attack with everybody that isn't Shell Shocker, right? I don't really want to be losing Shell Shocker on this board, since we're going to for Demacia 2 turns from now. Looks like he's got the Strike card. It's a bummer. Like, the Frostbite doesn't do anything to the Broadwing, but if he's going to strike down our Broadwing, that's kind of a sad day for us.
Beautiful and brutal, just how I like it.
Viego? Interesting. He's striking down the scout unit.
Blink and you miss me. Something to keep us moving.
Not what I expected. So I would think that he most certainly just has another Samira in his hand, right? Like, why is he not hooking the Broadwing with Samira? That's kind of like my initial take in this space. But like, how upsetting is that if he gets to just kind of come in and drop another one? I don't think that's too bad. But I don't want to just be making a ton of attacks here. Let's at least make him play the other version, right? And then like hitting in this Keeper of the Box and stuff doesn't seem very good.
Try to keep up.
Why did he boost the Keeper of the Box before the combat, though? That's very strange. I wonder if that was just a misclick, or if that was intentionally getting us like that.
Discipline and steel.
That's why he's AJ the Pro. We're just Bust the Amateur, and so I'm curious what was going on there.
I protect my own.
Very good block for us here, getting this Keeper of the Box off the board and having our units survive. Varus can kind of just do whatever. No real reason to get in front of him in this space, I don't think. All right, I'm gonna go Badger Bear into 4 Demacia. I really like that we have this 4 Demacia with the Bark Beast, getting these really big attacks in twice. It's just gonna get soaked by the Maokai first, but it's still a very important unit to just be getting off of the board. Because I don't think we gain too much out of Genevieve. She does get the hook into Varus, but Varus has to block this turn anyways. Shouldn't be anything in the opposing deck that can stop this 4 Demacia. You can have the Cultist Flash Freeze, whatever that's called, to neuter 2 of our units, but it's a very expensive play for the round. Oh, he has the second strike. Wow. Pretty good. Pretty good. So we're only going to hit for 12 this round. He has to block everything. And we'll get to play an additional Varus next turn, and then we're probably going to find ourselves having to 4 Demacia. You can't really like hee-haw around on this upcoming turn in terms of preventing the damage. It's why I was actually kind of interested in blocking Varus on the previous turn. Holy shit, he's just going to survive. I think we're definitely just getting OTK'd here, right? Well, this Varus is taking a strike. He only has the mana to play 2 chains. 2 chains, 4 bracelets. Let me see that ass clap. Standing ovation. I got that one for you. I got the 2 chains lines just in case. Just in case you weren't ready. But yeah, we have to just 4 Demacia, Inspired Light, prevent all the damages that we can. I think that we're probably just dead to an open, right? He can flare, chains twice, and then hook in our 2 health unit. That looks way more than
Their minds are so fragile.
Enough damage.
We deliver their end.
That was enough. So see, this is why the block on the previous turn can be so important. Right? He's very limited in cards at that point, but that was a tough spot that we really took there with both of the strikes coming through. So, ooh, damn, that's the one that we really needed to win as well. Like these, now do we have a larger mountain to climb back with the scouts match not being super great against Aatrox Vayne, and then having to run the mirror match against a better player. But reasonable enough start. It's almost tempting to hang on to that second misfortune, but we'll get rid of her, look for a piece of interactivity. She came back. She said, I belong in this hand, bro. Don't be trying to shuffle me away. Elkin on board. This is kind of tough. Like, so many of his cards are good into the Grumble Slug. Like, if he has any equipment here, the attacks just aren't very good. But like, I don't want to really be attacking this thing with a Broadwing, right? I want to save the Broadwing for units that actually matter. And all this guy really does is just slow down the board. So I think we'll hang on to the Broadwing for this moment. We'll see if we can't pick up a better play in a future turn. Still send in the damage though. We gotta start whittling this guy's health away. You've been whittled 1 point, my dude. And champion strength though. That changes the texture of the game.
Fortune favors the bold.
So we'll see what we can't build up to with the champion strength being active now. So we're gonna go. Let's lead with this. We'll go Fleet Feather Tracker, then we'll go Broadwing Shell Shocker. Give everybody Challenger. See how we can't build up to this. It's a very nice turn to be doing a couple of things here. It's like we're gonna end up losing one unit if we like start to bring these attacks. The thing I'm starting to think of is like losing one is probably fine enough, but like just attacking with the Fleet Feather Tracker into one of these units doesn't really do anything, right? We're just clearing out a unit so that we can play a Quinn on a later turn. I think we still just want to send everybody in, get this nice chunk of damage in. Whatever happens with the Defector next turn, I'm kind of okay with, right? If he loads it up with a Darkened Spear or something, that's all pretty fine. The thing I'm worried about is him having fish fights for some of these units, and so things like the Fleet Feather Tracker coming in and being scary. The Quinn Bird, this is all just going to go wrong, isn't it? Let's see what equipment he ends up playing here. Aegis. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. We have to just do this, right? We end up losing all of our units if we don't take the Valor off of the board. Well, maybe not. He's going to go about it this way. Like, the thing that I started to think is, like, how much does he care about this Misfortune? So he has this ability to hook Misfortune with Valor and then hook Misfortune with Fleet Feather Tracker. And it's like, I'm curious if he's going to take that route. Ooh, that seems fine to me. We can just champion Strength next turn if we really want to.
I ought to show you the sights of Bilgewater. The sights are fine. The smells, on the other hand.
Today is the last day.
Do we want to get the second bird on board? It unfortunately doesn't have great attacks out here, right? We can Blinding Assault into the one bird, but I mean, I guess taking the Defector off the board isn't terrible, but we can just do that with our second attack if we want to. So let's take the free one.
Love ya.
And we're going to take the Defector. I guess the reason to add the additional bird is if we're looking to just open with the Champion Strength next round. Right, since we are losing a bird this way. Then we can do it a touch faster with this Blinding Assault. Okay. I'm interested. That felt very good. Get out there, get on the board. Get on the board, my friend. Rip. I'll admit, it would have been pretty cool to have that Misfortune around, but I don't think we can really change anything here. I think this Champion Strength is just too important and too good. Our Quinn is bigger than Aatrox. He's played one heavy metal up to this point, whatever that the +2/+2 is called. I think these attacks are all just too strong.
Just like hunting thresher geese.
So we'll send this one. I'm assuming our Quinn's not going to die here. And then if she gets to attack again, she's going to flip and hook the Aatrox out of combat. So, very powerful if we make it that far. Just lethal him with what we have on board, right? If we hook the Defector with the bird, we hook Aatrox with the Quinn bird. Right. Oof. Good job, scouts.
We're safe. For now.
Alright, one game between us and all those trophies. Let's see how this sweet-ass mirror match goes. Oof. So what do we got? We did get in a start with a turn 2 attack. Like, I think this is all pretty reasonable. The Broadwing, not a real superstar in this matchup, but if we end up trading out the Elkin quickly, then having that interactivity could be kind of nice. But I'm just seeing this as starting the turn 2 attacks with the Darkened Spear, and then giving us the opportunity to snowball this board a little bit. We start getting our units to, we're both playing the same units, and if our units are bigger than his units, then that's a pretty decent advantage. Interesting block onto the Elkin. Bird, sure. We can take a 3-bank into the next turn if this is what it's going to come down to. I'm just going to pass for now. And if he plays an equipment onto the bird, we do have the fish fight to take this nonsense down. This would just end the game if we don't have that unit removed. Now we can switch things up just a little bit. We can go for the Broadwing into the Elkin into the Darkened Spear. It's an all-around pretty big board. Don't want to be playing a 4-3 here. You're just going to get tempoed out of the game. Interesting. It's like I really wanted to switch over to playing the Darkened Fan, right? He's going to follow up with the 4-3 after combat here. And so it's like, that you can get in a much bigger attack that way, but these bonuses are probably just too good, and we can try and trade with the Defector next turn. I know he has Darkened Harp in hand, but there's a bit of opportunity there. Monstrous Vayne ready to party. Let's just pass. I think we can take all of this. Just continue to pass. We'll add in Vayne, we'll play the Darkened Fan, and then look to make an open attack next turn. It's very close to lethal. If you have a fish fight here, it kind of sucks, but kind of is what it is.
I'm not done.
We can make this trade. If we get this dum-dum off of the board, we're gonna lose our Darkened Fan, but again, we're so close to just taking this game over with tempo that I like adding in the Harpy. Like, if he plays Aatrox this turn, that would be kind of a bummer, but that was enough. That's what that hand looked like. But at the end of the day, able to unlock, able to achieve victory. We did it, Team Bust. Acquire all the trophies, and man, as we talk about some of these Ruthless Rumbles being more challenging than playing the normal rounds of the Open, running into those final 2 battles was definitely a case of playing against the best of the best. But nonetheless, good set of games. I had fun with that. Hope you did too. It's going to do it for us today. So hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way. You had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.